Internet's being a little wonky, so my camera's going to not be the best, but we are still going to do some technical analysis for the SPY, Qs, Apple, Tesla, Amazon, and NVIDIA, and I believe that we really need to talk about rates because of what data comes out this week. The data that I really think we need to pay attention to for this week is Wednesday, November 1st at 2 p.m. We do get the Fed interest rate decision. And I do believe the probabilities are starting to add up that we are going to see some kind of pausing from the Fed. So this is going to be a very, very important week to pay attention, because if we do get some kind of pausing from the Fed, we could get some kind of bull run. And if I go into these charts in a moment, you're going to see a lot of setups that are telling you that we could see some kind of bounce, and that could be a bigger bounce if we do get a pause from the Fed. As we go into the SPY, we're looking very bearish, right? This is very scary. We're underneath the 200. Some people say when we go beneath the 200, run and hide, right? But what we want to do is think about Warren Buffett. When others are fearful, we need to start to be greedy. And I believe that that is, something to think about right now, because I do believe we are actually seeing some kind of bottoming process. And this week could be the last week where we do get some kind of bottom. Now, it doesn't mean we can't break down to the bottom of our weekly range early on in the week, right? But these new weekly ranges here, we could see some kind of hip fire move out of them and then a buyback in, especially if we get some kind of pause. So if we do see buyers start to step in, you'll see where they could step in more likely on the Qs. But I overall wanted to tell you that I believe we are seeing some kind of bottoming, and we're going to see some kind of bigger bounce over the next few weeks. And you can see if we do start to head to lower levels, okay, early on in the week, we will be outside of that monthly risk range, and we're going to see people buying back in to get this inside of these risk ranges. And I've gotten a lot of questions about these risk ranges and how to trade around them. So I am actually making a course that will teach you about how to look at the MACD. And I believe a lot of people think they know about the MACD, but there are things that at least I've pointed out, and I've had my friends take parts of my course so far, and they're like, wow, I never would have known this if I didn't, look at this course, watch these videos. So we do point out things on the RSI and MACD that a lot of people don't understand. And then at the same time, I'll even give you a trading strategy and how to make these weekly ranges. Okay, so that's the course that I'm working on right now. Look for that in the future. But for right now, let's just pay attention to shorter time frames, because as we go into a 30-minute, this is why I'm kind of leaning towards a bounce. Okay, we ought to pay attention to the technicals here and say, this MACD down here has a triple divergence. We see right here, we have triple divergence, okay? We have this straight across right here, and then we go up. So that would mean from this low way back here to here, we see that diverting, and we could see some kind of bounce. Now, whether that is some kind of bounce on Monday to then take us to lower levels, maybe outside of that weekly range, and then we get some good news, maybe with Apple earnings and the pause, we can see a huge, huge reaction. But as of right now, it looks like the SPY wants to bounce on Monday. The only reason I'm hesitant about that bounce on Monday is because we're not necessarily seeing that with the Qs here. Now, the good part is you're seeing the Qs hold up while the SPY headed down to lower levels. So that can be something that you can compare the two to, and maybe we do see some kind of upward move, but maybe this is just some kind of retest or filling of a gap, and then we start to make this come down, and if that does come down, we can pay attention to a little divergence. Now, I haven't updated the weekly ranges on the Qs for this video, but I'm going to do that for the next video on Monday, because sometimes they do change on Monday, but I will have them updated for Monday. Right now, I overall just wanted to show you guys how we did close right on that weekly expected move, and that's pretty interesting, and how the Qs and the SPY are diverting from one another right now. And as we zoom out on the Qs, this is what I'm talking about, how it'll be easier to see where we could find a bounce. You're noticing that the 200 is not far below us, and we could see, that bounce on Monday. Maybe that is given away, and we actually do head to that 200 and push the SPY down a little bit more, and then we are able to see buyers step in and buy back up before that Fed rate decision. That would be a pretty good sign. But overall, I just wanted to tell you guys, I am really leaning towards the probabilities, which are telling me that we are going to see some kind of bounce. What could make the market bounce? A Fed pause. A Fed pause can really make the market bounce, and that would mean that we could either go set up maybe some kind of new, high or lower high, right? We could see some kind of lower high from this move, or we could see some kind of, big bull run even all the way into next year. And one of the stocks that's really telling me that we're going to get a bounce is Apple. Okay, so Apple has this, consolidation. We're starting to get price, get tighter and tighter, and then we're going to see some kind of bigger move. Maybe I should pull up Bollinger Bands here, so you can see how we get really wide on these big moves, and now we're starting to just tighten up, tighten up, tighten up. So what we could see from this area is we do have a triple divergence on the MACD. We have a at least divergence here, okay, on the RSI. So we have a big divergence on the RSI. We have a triple divergence on the MACD, and this can lead to huge bounces. The momentum to the downside is tiring out, and I believe that if we do see some kind of pausing, maybe we do come up on Monday, hit our top of our purple zone. We like to, when we break these zones, we like to come and touch the bottom of it to the downside, and then we see a little bit more selling. But you can notice we have earnings, and we'll have that Fed rate decision right around those earnings. So this could be one last push lower before we see some reaction to then head to higher levels. Now, how would this start to play out? Okay, so I'm paying attention to this level right in here as some kind of, left shoulder, head, and then I'm expecting that if we do get some kind of pause from the Fed, we will get a reaction to pull us outside of this falling wedge here, be a bullish sign. And then what are we going to do? Because we have passed through this purple zone here, if you've been subscribed and you were subscribed for a long time, you've noticed how when we do want to get fully out of this zone, we react above it and we come down and touch the top of it to use it to gain some buyers, and then we get the bigger move. So I am expecting some kind of move to get us up into this level, setting up some kind of right shoulder, possibly down into here with the top of our purple zone, and then we can see that stronger move start to play out. That's what I'm paying attention to, kind of like a big, kind of wonky left head and right shoulder. Now, it does not mean that we have to reverse yet. Right now, we don't have any divergences on Apple on a 30-minute chart, and a lot of the time we like to set up a 30-minute or hourly divergence before we see a new trend start, okay? So this could be telling us that we are going to get some kind of reaction higher because the SPY is telling us that it has that divergence and it looks like it wants to bounce early on Monday. Maybe we come into our trend line here and the bottom of our purple zone, sellers come back in and push this down. What that would do would create some kind of divergence, right? We need to have, I like to do the rule of 3 to 5 things in order to take a trade. I need a checklist of 3 to 5 things. And if I get that, downward move and get a divergence set up on a 30-minute chart, hey, there's one of my pieces of my checklist, and now I can look at other things. Are we extremely oversold on a daily? Are we at a support zone or something like that? But right now, I'm just telling you, it really looks like Apple wants to maybe push higher on Monday, but we could see some kind of reaction down to set up a 30-minute divergence for us. Now, Tesla, we have closed beneath this 200, right? We're closing beneath this 200. We knew a big move was coming because we were getting so tight within these Bollinger Bands here. The earnings actually push this thing down, and we want to pay attention to this level of 207.42. And if you are subscribed, you know why this is important. It just lines up with a bunch of support. And so if we would lose that, then it's kind of a free fall. We could maybe, hold up anywhere in this. So it's kind of hard to say where we would head to next. But overall, I'm just paying attention to right now this lower bar, okay? If we start to take out this low, then we're gonna go make a new one. And right now it's looking like it could be anywhere beneath under here. So what we would like to see is maybe a test of this bottom one more time, and then we react from there, and then we start to get that pausing news, and Tesla will react well from that pause. Tesla here, I just wanted to bring up a 2-hour, and you can see we rejected here. We look like we want to start to push higher, but we are still at lower levels. Now, what we can see from here is we don't necessarily have a 2-hour divergence, but we can see on the RSI down here, we got to extremely oversold levels, and we do have divergence at this point. I still think we do have the opportunity for some kind of move a little bit lower to then give us some kind of curl back up. That would create that divergence as well here on the MACD. So I am kind of expecting that we could see lower levels, but it really looks like the SPY wants to bounce from here. We have the Qs holding up while the SPY was still breaking down. A lot of the time we can see bounces from here. Now on Amazon, this is very important. We did get that good move, okay, from the earnings. So we did get that good move, and we're about to see that curl over and give us that actual confirmation on a daily on the MACD. The important thing to pay attention to here is this wicking here is pulling us back down within this wedge. So this actually tells us that we could see a fill of this gap, right? We could see a whole fill of this gap with people taking profit. Maybe if someone reports bad earnings or something like that, we get a reaction. But we still could see a full recall of this whole move down to our 200 before we get Apple earnings and some kind of pausing from the Fed, which I'm really leaning towards. So I just wanted to point out that it's very important that we actually have closed within this wedge and we weren't able to break above it. So right now you are not breaking out of this wedge, so you can't be extremely bullish at this point. But if we do see some kind of rebound and then a break or maybe a retest of that wedge, and then we can maybe head to higher levels. Video, we've been talking about that head and shoulders. Okay, we've been talking about that head and shoulders, but we've also been talking about how there's potential for us to see this as a fake out and get some kind of bounce. And people thought I was crazy and thought, why are you talking about this actually breaking? It's going to hold up. Look, there's a lot of downside pressure, and that's why I'm saying this little zone in here, okay, this little zone is going to be where we need to hold up. If you start to break below that, we could see further selling, but I do believe if we do get one more push lower, we could see some buyers step in right before that Fed rate decision, and I believe no one would see that coming. And I do not follow the herd, I follow the opposite of the herd, right? So right now everyone's saying rates are skyrocketing, rates are going higher, and I'm saying we're probably going to pause. Okay, we're probably going to pause, and then we could see some kind of upward move. The good part about NVIDIA here would be they took out the stops right here, so they did probably what they wanted to do. Now we're setting up some kind of divergence on a daily chart, which can lead to some very extreme strength, and we could see, NVIDIA making a new all-time high by the end of this year. The thing about NVIDIA, if we are not going to get a pause, right, I do want to cover the other side of the story, right? We need to cover if we do not get some kind of pause. I think NVIDIA will be the one that tells you this. If we start to get a daily close outside of this little, line that I have across here, this little bundle right in here, if we start to close outside of that to the downside here, then I believe that it is a good indication that we are going to see some further selling in the market. But I just want to let you guys know that I personally, in my opinion, I am leaning towards some kind of bounce from these areas. You're probably thinking, why do you think NVIDIA is going to bounce, or why is anything going to bounce? And that's just because we have so many divergences, right? We have so many divergences. This is a 2-hour divergence between these lows here, and a 2-hour divergence is known to roll over the daily a lot of the time. And if that 2-hour divergence is able to lead into the daily rolling over, that would lead into a daily divergence. And when that sort of stuff happens, we get big bounces, right? We get big bounces in markets. So that's why I'm paying attention to it. The shorter time frames are starting to tell me that we want to bounce from these types of levels. It doesn't mean that we can't go a tiny bit lower or a little bit lower and see some buying back up, but I'm just telling you that a lot of these shorter time frames and even the daily time frames are telling you that we want to bounce somewhere around these areas. And now we need to talk about these yields. So why do I think that there is going to be some kind of pause? Okay, he even said in his previous statements that the bond market might be doing his job for him. And you can see that kind of proven here. We've seen these yields get pushed higher and higher. It's really put some struggle in the market. But right now we see the divergence between these highs right here on the MACD and the RSI at the same time. And that's something that I go over in my course as very important. You can see we're actually closing beneath that little 9-day moving average. And if this does get some kind of pause, maybe we do get some kind of push higher if people don't believe there will be a pause or something like that. But overall, it looks like these want to start to head to lower levels. And what causes that to happen? A pause. A pause causes these yields to start to come down and back off. So I do believe that if we do get that to back off, we are going to see a very big bounce in the market. We can do what we do a lot of the time, but you just saw the SPY, right? We saw the SPY and it looked like, red bar after red bar just going like this right now. And we got that small bounce. But as of does TLT look like the SPY? No, we're looking like this, but right now we're looking like this. Okay, the TLT actually has this upward level here where the SPY is actually holding at lower levels, kind of like this. So that means that there is a divergence between the SPY and TLT. And a lot of the time these bond traders get it right and they know a little bit more about, a little bit smarter with the probabilities, right? So right now it's looking like the probabilities are leading towards these yields starting to come down and TLT getting some kind of big move, okay? So I just want you to pay attention to that. You see that divergence playing out right here. You see the divergence down here on the RSI. We have divergences everywhere that are signaling to me that we are going to get some kind of pause. And the only reason I say we could head to slightly lower levels before that happens is we are struggling to really break down in the VIX, okay? We are actually seeing the VIX close above 20 again. So we could see some volatile moves, right? That 30-minute divergence we showed on the SPY. Maybe we get one up move and one big down move, and then we start to head into, that Fed rate decision. So we really have to be on guard. But overall, you need to know that the trend looks like it's about to change, and we are probably going to get some kind of pause that is going to lead to a bull run of some sort. We are not seeing that crash indication, right? We're not seeing the 50 get above the 200. So we can look at that and say, okay, this means that the crash isn't going to happen, right now. Now, it doesn't mean that we can't see some kind of thing happen with, geopolitical something, and we get this to skyrocket. And all you have to do is pay attention to if these start to cross. If those start to cross, then, this bull run is probably all bets are off on that. But right now, I am overall telling you that it looks like we are going to see this VIX curl over. We are going to see those yields come down, and we are probably going to see a pause this week. My camera's all wonky, but the main takeaway from this is I know I'm giving a very bold statement, but I really am a firm believer in the be greedy when everyone else is fearful. And there is a lot of fear in this market, while the signals are actually telling us that we are going to bounce. So we're seeing a lot of other YouTube channels that spew out way too much fundamental info that are pretty much telling you that everything's going to hell, right? Everything is going to drop very quickly. And I'm just thinking to myself, we've dropped really quickly over the past 3 weeks. So when are we going to get a bounce? And all the technicals are telling me this looks like a level where we are going to see a bounce. Thank you so much for making it to the end of the video. I really appreciate it. And I wish you guys all the luck in the world trading this week, and look out for my course. It'll be coming out later this week.